All right, welcome to the Frenemies podcast. As you can see, we're missing our host today. Chris had a severe migraine, so we gave him the night off. We'll have to carry it without him here. So let's go ahead and start off with just a quick party question here. Thought this would be a real fun one we could talk about, and everybody always talks about this, the action star that you just would love to see pitted against another one. We're going to each choose 3 action stars out of the movies. We're talking about their character, not the actual actor, and just kind of assemble our team. So go ahead and start us off there, Tim.
So I'm a big fan of the Asian action movies. Looking back at some of my favorites out there, Ip Man. He is the mentor to Bruce Lee himself. He can take on pretty much anybody and multiple anybody's. So he was my number 1 overall pick if I had to choose. I don't know if you want to do this one at a time or you want to go all 3 through my list.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do one at a time.
All
so
right.
that's your kind of martial artist. Do you have any of a martial artist there, Ryan? Or are you?
I got Jack Bauer is going to be my team lead.
Okay.
Thinking, yeah.
Got any information on Mr. Bauer?
Here's the thing about Jack Bauer. He's versatile. He's a family man.
It's important in the
He's a
fight.
good leader. And he knows how to get that information.
He's relentless.
So, he's relentless.
Yeah.
So I feel good about Jack being my team lead. There might be some conflict though, just thinking about the people I picked. As far as like who's gonna be top dog.
All right, Sean, who you got?
So Tim mentioned the mentor to Bruce Lee, and I got the one who improved upon the mentorship, Bruce Lee himself. Not Ip Man, but Bruce Lee himself. I mean, he's the GOAT. When you're talking about martial arts, he's the one. So nobody had taken him yet, and I'm like, I gotta have this guy on my team.
Coming back with another strong one, I felt like I went with Hafthor Bjornsson.
Oh,
I don't know if you guys have seen this guy. He may or may not be the world's strongest man, otherwise known as the Mountain from Game of Thrones, and I would just like to see who you guys can line up against that.
Well, the funny thing is...
See, here I've got a guy here. I've got Achilles here. You've seen the movie. The first guy that he faces in Troy, he looks a lot like the Mountain. He just goes up and he goes right in the neck. So
You don't have weapons, though. We didn't make that premise.
Oh, yeah.
No weapens.
I'm kind of screwed.
And Ip Man's right at that Achilles level.
I guess my counteract, I figured I had to have somebody big. I mean, he's not as big, not as strong, but I have Hobbs from Fast and Furious, played by The Rock.
Oh, it's a good one.
He's one kick butt dude, man. If there's a guy I want in my corner when it comes to just brute strength, The Rock is the only one I could think that could come close. The funny thing was his name is Half Thor. Like literally, I thought that he was like half of Thor because that's what it.
I think that's the point.
When you look at the man. So go ahead and give us your third one.
Rounding out my team, I thought I was so complete that I just went with one that I thought would kind of just add a little surly punch to it if necessary, and that's a good old Ron Swanson. The man is just hard as nails. He's a survivor. He's a thinker, and he'll probably outwit you guys before you realize what's going on.
He's a very resourceful man.
Just keep Tammy out of there, and we'll be all right.
So Ryan's last one is Tam. No.
Yeah.
Who do you got, Ryan?
I've got one guy from the present, 2 guys from the past, and I had to go with Leonidas here because you can never go wrong with a Spartan. I think you pick the lowest tier little Spartan on the totem pole. He still kicks all your bleeps. You know what I'm saying? Since Norfolk Christian
It's hard not to use that word
this.
when we're talking about kicking butt, as I had
Thanks,
to say
David,
earlier.
for inviting Norfolk Christian kids to watch our podcast. So now we have to, bleep ourselves out.
All right, Sean, who rounds out your squad?
All right, and then last this is the first guy I thought of. Whenever I'm watching a movie, I'm just thinking of like the best fighting I can see in a movie. It's got to be the Transporter. Jason Statham, I mean, he just, despite his size, he might not have brute strength, but he kind of takes that Jackie Chan type of thing where whatever's around him, he's going to use it as a resource.
I'm pretty sure he's a kickboxer.
Yeah.
Legitimate kickboxer.
And you said judo, right?
I don't know about judo, but
he's
good.
I don't know fighting styles, but I do know that it looks like he can fight a lot of people at one time. So,
good deal. All right, so moving on to actual fantasy football here. What were your overall thoughts on this last week of football?
So I think that it's looking like in our league, I'm eliminated from the playoffs. I've won 2 straight, but because of the new, I know. Let's have a moment of silence for my fantasy team. No, that's Ryan's job. So, I think it'd have to be like everybody ahead of me has to lose every week, and then I have to win the last 2.
Need some help.
Yeah, it'd be pretty. I think it's like 11% chance or something according to Fantasy Pros. So I'm gonna say that I'm done. But I just want to shout out to those people that are done. It's real easy to just kind of put the website down, not even think about fantasy at all. But I think
you
it's
get
really
to ruin our fantasy.
Exactly.
That's
That's the number
That's
one.
kind
thing.
of a nice little segue into my point is that there were some pretty big upsets this week. You know, Morgan taking down Chris, and then who took down Phil? Who was it?
Andy.
Andy took down Phil. I mean, what more could you ask for as a guy who's not quite going to make the playoffs, but you're taking down some of the guys that are Super Bowl favorites? How fun is that? And I just want to point this out that Ryan better be pretty appreciative of that. Sitting there, on a 3-game losing streak or something like that, losing 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Rough situation, but he's getting some help, so he may still make it.
I do appreciate it. Thank you.
What's your thought there, Ryan?
It's just, everything's catching up to me.
How are you handling it? I've been wondering how it's been going over there.
If I have to distract myself with other activities in life.
Other activities.
If I think about this all the time, then I would definitely, I don't know,
like
I wouldn't feel great about myself. Yeah.
That's how I feel all the time.
So I have to take less of, my fantasy self. I have to take my pride and spread it in a few different areas because it gets crushed here. You go here.
The kicking incident.
Yeah, you go here. Yeah. The problem is I'm running out of things. This is my backup, jiu-jitsu, and now I'm out of that because so I don't have a lot of pride right now. So I guess what my point is right now is that this fucking sucks.
The more we talk about it, the more he gets upset about it.
It sucks.
Getting animated over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the last thing I was going to mention with that, if you're out, it's fun to play spoiler. The other thing is, it's really important for next year to pay attention. This is when a lot of fantasy knowledge comes into play. Like if you don't know what happens these last few weeks, you're not going to judge properly those players you're thinking about in the first few rounds.
Who wins the season strong? Traquan Smith or somebody like that.
Yeah,
can make people might forget about that as the season fizzles out, but he may be a hot name to think about for the beginning of next year.
Yeah, and I'm in a keeper league, so I have Dalvin Cook, and it's going to be a decision for me if I'm going to keep him. I haven't seen enough from him this year, but hopefully Minnesota will give me enough to know whether I should keep him. So, All right, and then we're going to move on here. We want to highlight waiver wire pickup this week. We're not going to do all the positions, but just kind of each name one guy that's going to be an important pickup. Your waivers may have run, but this is probably going to be a reassurance of who you picked up. So who you got for us there, Tim?
I have a little caveat next to mine. If Kerryon Johnson remains out, I like LeGarrette Blount playing.
Please no.
So if you're a Kerryon Johnson fan, we'll get into the injury report a little bit later. But LeGarrette Blount with him out has gotten the ball a number of times. He's getting the touches. He's obviously getting the goal line work. And so, anytime a running back gets the volume, I think he should be rostered. So he makes, I think, a valid flex option this week if Kerryon Johnson remains out.
All right, so my waiver wire pickup is Josh Reynolds. I think that's somebody that people are going to forget about after the bye week.
Not to be confused with Ryan Reynolds.
No, not quite as good looking, but probably better
actor.
At football.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's wide receiver for the Rams. He's taken over for Cooper Kupp's role, and he did pretty well. Now, it was against the Chiefs in a game that just had 14 touchdowns.
Seemed like everybody scored in that game.
It's crazy. But, it is the Chiefs' offense. You're going to see that. The Rams' offense, you're going to see that a lot. So, scoop him up. A lot of the times, he was been available because of that bye week. People didn't want to roster him to that. What about you, Ryan? Who you got?
Whoa. I got Eric Ebron.
He doesn't want to tell the world this, but
12 touchdowns. He sucks though.
Chances are he's already rostered in most leagues.
Yeah.
For some unfortunate reason, David saw it fit to drop him. So I feel for David there.
This will come out after.
Yeah, probably. So you're
guys. I'm gonna drop $91 on Eric Ebron.
So yeah, watch out for that, David.
Yep. Retro Dram.
All right, so another thing, instead of the waiver wire, we're going to do is matchups. So we're just going to get a little bit into what might be some tough decisions for you in the start sit and kind of highlight a matchup that we're really into. I think that the Bucks Panthers is actually going to have quite a bit of fantasy points in it. The Bucks defense, as we all know, has been awful. I think you can get 2 wide receivers on that team for the Panthers that are startable. Moore has kind of been the guy everybody talked about. He's the rookie, but we forget about that. Curtis Samuels, he was a rookie last year who started to come on. He's insanely fast. They're starting to use him now in the rushing game. He's getting like 2 or 3 rushes a game, and I think this Bucks defense is so bad that you can flex both of those guys if you need it.
I can't really see my laptop very well through this mic. You know what I'm saying?
The one thing to note there is Carolina's on the road. They just haven't been as great on the road. But Tampa Bay is historically bad.
Yeah.
So.
And then Humphreys, I think, is a great safe PPR option if you need him. He's just going to be that check down guy for Jameis. He's the other thing is Deshaun Jackson is looking like he might not play. He's seeing a hand specialist. So either Humphreys, and if you need more of the upside, I'd play Goodwin. He's kind of the touchdown, stretch the field type of guy. And then I will throw out a little bit of a warning here. If you have Peyton Barber, he's been pretty consistent and good for you, but that Carolina defense has actually been really good against the run. I don't know if I would go for him. They're not going to be up in this game most likely. So, I think Barber's not a great option unless you need to put a running back 3 in and you're really desperate. What's your matchup there, Tim?
Yeah, so I'm kind of intrigued by the Chargers-Steelers game. I know you're going to roll out those offensive studs pretty much regardless, but I think that the defenses could play a bigger role here than what we're expecting. Mm-hmm. Joey Bosa is expected to be back for a full game here pretty soon, if not for this game. He's a game changer, at the defensive end position. The Steelers are on a third string right tackle. So it could be kind of a game wrecker, Joey Bosa's return. Pittsburgh's offense is obviously good. Depends on what Ben Roethlisberger really shows up. Pittsburgh defense tends to limit the big plays, tends to limit the points, despite giving up a ton of yardage, all that sort of stuff. So it'll be really interesting to see how this one shakes out. Obviously, Melvin Gordon is out. We'll get into that in the injury report. But how does Austin Eckler look as the primary focus, in the running game there? It seems like he is better as a change of pace kind of back rather than the primary option. So he could even lose some work up to the other running back options there. So
yeah, I think that's a good place to stop and
He's
talk.
1-1. Like he had a bad time when the last time, and this time he did well. So it's just. You don't know.
I think that the Chargers are being smart with it. What I saw this last game was they've started to use this Justin Johnson as a rookie they have, and they're kind of starting to give him a few carries. It's because me and Tim were talking earlier that Eckler is really a change of pace back. I don't think he's that workload. Yeah. Give him everything. Yeah. He works really well when the defense has been worn down a little bit by another back. He comes in, has a lot of juice, and comes with big plays. That's what I saw. It's probably, you don't ever want to hear that your player's going to lose touches.
But he may benefit from a loss of touches to a back that is going to...
So, outlook-wise, what do you think he's a running back 1 this week, or
I would put him a high upside RB2. That's where I would have him.
Yeah, I don't. If you're thinking you're going to get, just a little bit less production than Melvin Gordon, you're probably going to be...
Pittsburgh's run D is traditionally pretty good. This year they have been good up until the last 2 weeks or so. It really depends on if Stephen Tuitt makes it back. Read recently he's the number 8 overall interior lineman against the run. So having him is a big hole for that Steelers defense who, they'll blitz on first down, run blitz constantly. So it really depends on, if he's able to come back, I could see, them shutting down the running game entirely. So it'll be interesting to watch.
But he has that
one.
Pass catching, so you'll at least have that safe floor.
True.
That's the best thing with Eckler. You'll have a floor.
None of that sounds good to me.
But you don't have a choice. I think you're going to have to start him there, Ryan.
Don't have a choice.
Do you have any thoughts on matchups this week here, Ryan?
I would just say to make wise choices.
Very wise man once said, make wise choices.
Yeah, like if somebody's saying, these guys have been doing really good like all year, and these guys have been doing really bad, I would just, listen to that. Yeah.
The other game that interests me, and I know Chris was pretty high on this one, is that the Saints-Cowboys game. I really think it's pretty interesting. I think the Cowboys D is sneaky good. They have a good run game, good possession. I'm kind of expecting Cowboys to kind of hang with the Saints a little bit, give them a little bit of trouble, but I think the Saints will pull that out. I am planning on playing Amari Cooper this week, so we'll see how that goes. I'm a little concerned.
Chris seems to be confident in him.
Yeah, so that encourages me a little bit. But
Do you think that's a shootout or a blowout?
So Chris thinks that because it's a short week, we've
Yeah.
been seeing a lot of bad defensive play
Yeah.
in the short week. It's been a
Yeah.
lot of offense.
Yeah.
It kind of can go either way on those Thursday nights.
Because the Saints have been just rolling over people.
they happen, and their defense is getting better as the weeks go on here. So watch out for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just really depends on. I think it's going to be like you said. It's that Cowboys defense. If they can hold the Saints to under 30 points,
Can anyone do that?
You might
Has
be
anyone?
looking at a. No, not really. That hasn't really happened. So no.
Good luck, Cowboys.
All right, well, moving on. Let's talk about some maybe defensive streamers that we have as options. I'll kind of start out here. Basically, anybody who's going to be playing Cincinnati over the next couple weeks, I think, is going to be valid. So I doubt that Denver's still out there, but if they are, go grab them. I think they're going to have a great game against a pretty horrible Bengals team.
Yeah, I think this is actually a really good week for streamers. So you're looking at our
Yeah.
waiver wire. We have just some top ranked opportunities and matchups this week. You have Seattle's available against San Francisco, and Chris Mullins has been anything but spectacular since that first start. Kansas City's playing Oakland. Anybody against Oakland's a great start. Sam Darnold starting, so he's a turnover machine. You start the Tennessee Titans, who've been a pretty good defense until that.
Well, fun fact for Sam Darnold, he leads the leagues in interceptions and yet has still missed, I don't know how many games, 5 games is it? So that's just
ridiculous.
a fun fact.
All right, so yeah, but the defense that I'm actually going to stick with for this week is the Seattle Seahawks. I think that that's got a really good option this week. Normally, ever since the Legion of Boom has gone down, it's been more difficult to start
Now
them.
it's Legion of Poo. Legion of Poo Poo.
You got to come up with a better rhyme than that. But
1 out of 10 jalapenos on that.
Okay.
But they're playing San Francisco, and as we talked about, Nick Mullins has not been so great as of late. Surprised I didn't bench him for Beathard, to be honest with you.
I am as well.
Legion of Vroom Vroom.
Well, that's a good thing. You need a negative. Legion of...
But it's not that good. It's not like Legion of Boom.
just work on
Just
it.
think about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so did you have a defense for us? I guess we'll do Chris's defense. He said the Colts, they're playing the Jags, who are benching Blake Bortles, so it might not be as good of a play because Blake Bortles won't be there to throw all those picks. But they don't have Fournette, so it's never a bad idea to start it against the Jags. So I would agree with him there. What about you, Tim?
Yeah, I kind of talked a little bit.
Denver.
Pretty much anybody playing Cincy
Yep.
in any weeks to come.
All right, and then pick up...
Legion of Gloom.
That's a little better.
I just looked up things that rhyme.
Okay. So the pickup line, we can't even pretend to be able to come up with a pickup line as good as the great Chris.
I don't know the
Dr.
website
Love.
he uses. So
It's true.
yeah.
So we'll just go ahead and go straight to the pickup of last week. And I put in there Lamar Jackson. I think he was definitely somebody that was worth picking up. I honestly thought about picking him up and starting him over Aaron Rodgers, and it would have been a good idea. He's just got such a high floor that, I think he had 3 turnovers and only 1 touchdown, and he still was a top 10 quarterback. So.
I think he's got a good matchup this week. I think they're down at Atlanta this week, which their defense is pretty banged up. And I think it's only a matter of time before his window starts to close. They start getting some film on him, seeing what he likes to do, seeing what he's bad at. So this may be one of the last weeks that I think Lamar Jackson is really fantasy relevant.
So to be clear, Tim predicted he would be good now, and Tim is now predicting his decline.
I did.
This week will be good, and then decline.
I do think, defenses are so smart. They
Yeah.
watch the film, they see what people are bad
You're
at,
right.
and then just make you do it over and over and over again.
It's
So
kind of funny that RG3 is on the team with him. It's like, that's your future.
yeah, well, so I think Lamar Jackson, he even from the preseason till now, him just sitting on the bench, I think he looks better than he did. He looks a little bit more comfortable. I think he'll benefit from another offseason, another, OTA, another preseason.
Yeah, I didn't watch much of the last game, but what I've seen so far has not shown me anything that says he's going to be like they want to make him the Deshaun Watson type,
Yeah,
and I don't see it.
yeah,
I don't see that happen. I think he's going to have to.
He looks for the run a little bit too quick, and I feel like that's what they talked about this last week is, hey, you got to go through some progression before you just pull it down and run. So
Yeah.
All right. Legion of Exhume.
Why not? I don't even know
like-
what that means.
I like gloom better. Exhume, isn't it like something with bodies, like dead bodies?
Yeah,
You
I
exhume
think
them?
you're right.
Is
Yeah.
it really?
Anyway, we should just move on from that as a whole, I think.
Yeah, that's
Legion of Perfume?
no. Let's not talk
All right.
about this anymore. The bench player that you're gonna leave on your bench this week that you should start is actually on our waiver wire.
So you're not going to leave him on the bench?
You
Yeah,
shouldn't
you
leave him on
shouldn't.
your bench.
This is me calling out saying don't do it. You're gonna regret it. Like, although I didn't give Tim this advice.
Look into camera 1 and give your pitch.
So I told Tim not to start Amari Cooper. I'm sorry, Tim. It hurt you. You did score 140 something points, so I don't think you were hurt that bad. But
Yeah. That was a hard one for me. I should have trusted my gut.
I went on the assumption that he was going to be shadowed by what's his name? Norman.
Josh Norman, yeah.
But all of his touchdowns were not on Norman. So obviously that didn't happen. So, but the player I'm saying this week, last week I said Dalvin Cook. He had a bounce back week for you. I'm going to say Carlos Hyde. We talked about that matchup. Colts aren't a great defense. The only reason you're starting them is because the Jaguars' offense has been so bad. They got a backup quarterback coming in. But I think that they're going to stick to the run game. That's what Marone wants to do. And I think Carlos Hyde's going to get the majority of the carries over TJ Yeldon. And if their defense can keep them in the game enough, he could have a pretty good week. So I think that's somebody that you could pick up, put in your lineup right away. And then Ryan, you got a kicker for us, the kicker whisperer.
It's going to be Mason Crosby this week against Arizona.
Okay. That's a repeat. You agree with your Daniel companion because that's what he told us last
Dude,
week.
Daniel, bro. We're like soulmates, bro.
I can't believe you missed the episode together.
Yeah.
Your best friend.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, buddy. Wish I could
He's
get
not
it
doing
back.
so well, though.
Yeah.
Came on the podcast and then went down to last place.
I know.
Sorry about that.
Morgan was very excited. Oh, and I know Chris couldn't be here, but he was going to just lay his trophy at your feet, Morgan, and just tell you how amazing of a fantasy football player you are. Take back anything he's ever said ill about you as you put Lamar Miller to work on him. And we all thought there was no way Lamar Miller was going to get 20 points, and he had it in like the first quarter. So
Yeah.
you
A
got it done.
97-yard run will help that.
Yeah. All right, and then last thing we got here is our injury report with Mr. Tim. Let's get right into it.
So we talked a little bit about Kerryon Johnson earlier. They've still been pretty vague about his knee injury. They said he avoided, obviously, any sort of serious damage. Who knows? Week to week, watch for his practice reps, watch for his participation. I'd like to see him do a full practice at least before the start of Sunday. Melvin Gordon, grade 2 MCL sprain. Likely a 2 to 4 week kind of deal. I would err towards 4 weeks or longer. Grade 2 is usually pretty severe. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see him until the real football playoffs.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
some people are hoping that 2 weeks is more what it is because.
Well, what
then-
if he's eating his veggies, Tim?
So a lot of the times you'll see a guy come back from a grade 1 MCL sprain, 2 weeks.
Too soon.
But we've talked about this before. There
Yeah.
is a certain individual in the name of Cooper Kupp who
Yeah.
came back from an MCL injury, what I think was a little bit too soon, and he's on IR. So I think the Chargers are a very potent offense with Melvin Gordon. They'll want him back healthy for the playoffs. I think they're in a good spot right now, so I
As-
think they'll continue.
As bad as it sounds, it's almost like you're gonna have to see what the Chargers do. I could see them pushing him back if they're on that bubble of making the playoffs.
Yeah, thankfully they have a nice little lead in the wild card race.
Yeah.
They're in a very competitive division. I know they play the Chiefs again.
I was gonna say, I think the fantasy owners are hoping that if it's that 2 weeks, then that third week is Kansas City, and that's, fantasy gold there.
I think they would love to see him back for that game, but grade 2 MCL is usually pretty serious. He'll come back in a brace that'll affect his maneuverability, his agility, all that sort of stuff. So as a fantasy owner, yes, you want to see him come back. As the Chargers enter into the playoffs, I think they're going to want to hold him out. So it'll be interesting to watch that one develop over the next couple weeks.
All right, and then one for me here, Kenyon Drake.
Yeah, so I didn't know a ton about his injury going into this last Sunday, but it looked like he kind of re-injured it.
He died.
Took a couple plays off, and then somehow miraculously came back into the game. So watches.
I didn't see
Yeah,
him
he was
come
back-
back in
he
the
was
game.
back in the
That's
game.
insane.
Yeah, so I think it's likely going to be a lot of pain management for him this week, and then if he can play through the pain on Sunday. So I'd like him to participate, hopefully in practice, probably not collision, any sort of contact, but
Yeah.
at least to see him get some reps, and then let's see if he can handle the pain on Sunday. So
Yeah.
he'll likely be a game time decision.
I think he'll be what he always is, even now with the added caveat that he could re-injure it and go back out.
Yeah.
He's just, you're going to put him in there and you're just going to hope it's the 2 touchdown game and not the 2 reception game.
Sure. Looking through, I have a couple other running backs on here. Todd Gurley, looks like he's good to go from his ankle injury. Whatever held him out, against that Kansas City game or limited him at all doesn't seem to be affecting him now. So he had a good bye week at a good time. So he should be good to go. Full workload there. Marlon Mack, I guess, sustained a concussion on Sunday. Watch his participation throughout the week. Hopefully he's good to go for a game against Jacksonville on Sunday. AJ Green. So initially, the first reports were that he was going to be out till December. Obviously, they've been flirting with him coming back a little bit earlier.
It's just Marvin Jones being ridiculous.
Stick with him. I mean, this is what they thought it was initially, is that he'll be out until the beginning of December. Obviously, Andy Dalton's now out, so he's going to have a huge step back anyway with Driscoll there throwing the ball. So I don't know. Take your poison with him. If he comes back a little bit too soon and gets banged up, or they're getting blown out, I wouldn't be surprised if he sits to rest his foot. So I don't know if you can really trust him the first week he comes back, especially with a new quarterback situation there.
Do you think his foot injuries are just racking up?
So if it is indeed a turf toe, typically what happens is that your toe kind of gets bent up. So it's extended, your toe, and the ligament on the bottom of your foot gets torn. And if you imagine every time you take a step and you bend your big toe, you're exposing that ligament to more potential damage. A lot of the time, that's why you end up in a boot for a number of weeks to allow that ligament to heal.
So you're bending your toe up.
Yeah, so if this is my big toe and I'm bending it up this way, the ligament on the bottom of my toe is what is the problem there. So for you on the YouTube channel, it's the the bottom ligament. If this is my big toe, so the bottom ligament is typically what happens. That typically happens from a great toe hyperextension.
Son of a gun.
So it can be pretty painful. Obviously, anytime you take a step, you're bending your toe. It doesn't heal particularly well unless you rest it, and then you have a whole bunch of other issues to come back from. So,
Dang. Okay.
If that's what it is, I haven't seen a turf toe report, but typically, if it's a toe injury and it's keeping you out for a couple weeks, that's what it is.
Because isn't that something he's dealt with in the past? AJ Green?
He's had some foot issues. I don't think it's been specifically turf toe. I think a lot of receivers go through that at some point in their career, but it's become kind of one of those things. If you hear turf toe, that's a scary one.
Usually, and what will happen too is they'll put like a plate or something in the bottom of the shoe, something firm that doesn't allow the toe to really bend, which obviously affects your ability to run and cut and do all that sort of stuff. But it at least protects the ligament, hopefully from re-injuring it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Again, I don't know if you can really trust him or not. So
he has had turf toe. In the past. Okay.
Yeah.
So another receiver here, Marvin Jones, just a quick.
Yeah, so quick update on him. He was placed on IR. I'm not all that surprised. Bone bruises are a real pain to come back from. Like I said, a couple weeks ago, they can be a little bit worse than ligament injuries just because they seem to last a little bit longer. They don't heal as quickly, and they can be extremely painful. So he's on IR, obviously not coming back this season. 2 more quarterbacks. I talked about Andy Dalton. He had a couple ligaments in his thumb tear. I believe it was his throwing hand. So obviously not able to grab the ball. Typically what you'll see with this is a ligament on the inside of your thumb. It's called gamekeeper's thumb. You get it caught in a jersey and it gets pulled back and kind of opens up that thumb joint. And so it's extremely painful, 1. And 2, it really affects the stability of the thumb joint. I don't know. Again, this is kind of just conjecture whether or not that is. Typically, that's what happens. He gets caught on something. And if I believe correctly, it was a turnover. He went to go make a play on the play on the ball.
This is about the time of year that Andy Dalton does that exact same thing.
A couple of years ago, he threw a pick against the Steelers and broke his thumb.
Yep.
It was a year. Yeah, it was a year that he was having a pretty good year with good stats and all that, and right before the playoffs went out. So
I need that eject button when they throw an interception or something. You just eject the quarterback off the field.
Yeah. Mitch Trubisky coming back from what I believe was an AC joint sprain. These going to be a bit of a problem for quarterbacks. It kind of is that joint right at the tip of your shoulder, really affects any sort of overhead movements, can be really painful to kind of throw through. So let's watch his progress throughout the week, his participation through practice. I wouldn't be surprised to see him limited and potentially out 1 more week at least. This can be a several week kind of deal. And especially because they have a game lead or 2 in the NFC North, I wouldn't expect, I wouldn't be surprised if he sat another game.
Yeah. All right.
And then 2 tight ends, Evan Ingram, hamstring, week to week. We've preached about this all year so far. And then unfortunately for Jack Doyle, we talked a little bit about him. He had some sort of kidney issue. My guess is some sort of laceration or something like that. Ended up going to the hospital the night of the game. He's on IR. So
That just sounds painful.
Yeah.
Lacerated kidney.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really ever wants that. So, yeah.
Okay, so kidney. So he got like a knee to the.
Yeah, it could
This
be a
weak
knee
spot.
or a helmet or anything
Right
like that. You have
here.
two kidneys, so it could be
Yeah.
either side. It sits kind of right underneath
that
that.
weak,
Yeah.
unprotected spot right
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty uncomfortable.
Here you go, viewers. Hey.
That's just an excuse for Ryan to show off his lats. So, yeah.
No, that don't exist.
All right, so a little bit shorter of a show this week. We didn't have, Chris talks a lot, so we didn't have as much information for you.
Chris has got a freaking migraine.
Yeah. So something we look forward to next week with Chris, actually. We want to utilize a little more. For those of you that don't know, he's a coach and actually knows what he's talking about here, as where I'm just a fan that loves all of the stuff that happens on the field. He kind of understands what's going on. So we're going to institute a coach's corner with Chris, and we'll have a whiteboard up here and everything. You'll get to see Chris break down a play or break down some kind of schemes that they're using in the NFL that might help you a little bit in fantasy football. So that's what you can look forward to next week. He'll be back here, and yeah, I think that's about all we got. You want to send us out of here, Ryan?
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Have a good week.
Like and subscribe.
Bye.
Tell your friends.
That hasn't worked.
Nah, I know.
So
We'll just keep trying.
I try something different. It doesn't work.
You gotta be more passionate.
Okay. You do it then.
I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. I'm not a good salesman. If you like it, cool. If you don't, then I respect your decision. Have a good week.